Okay, so I'm going to do something a little bit different. Normally, I try and stay away from these, doom and gloom topics and try and keep things positive and inspiring and uplifting and educational on this channel, even when I have negative thoughts on something. So today in The Atlantic, Ted Gioia put out an article called "Is Old Music Killing New Music?" And I was turned on to it by my friend Rick Beato, who did a live stream on his channel today talking about the article. I'll have both linked down below. You should go check them out. The article is definitely worth a full read, and Rick's video is worth watching to get his take on it. But I wanted to offer my take on it because I am a working musician, or as Ted puts it in his article, the quote, especially endangered species known as the working musician. This article starts off by saying, old songs now represent 70% of the US music market, according to the latest numbers from MRC Data, a music analytics firm. Those who make a living from new music, especially that endangered species known as the working musician, should look at these figures with fear and trembling. But the news gets worse. The new music market is actually shrinking. All the growth in the market is coming from old songs. Now, I agree from my perspective, it seems that the old music is definitely killing the new music, but I don't agree that people like me or people like you watching this video should look at these numbers with fear, and I'll explain why in just a minute. Now, I want to start by addressing something that you're all probably thinking, and many of you are probably typing in my comments section because I see this all the time in comment sections of my videos, which is this idea that, oh, well, old music is killing new music because all new music sucks. It's just computerized, overproduced, regurgitated, high fructose corn syrup, empty calorie, nothing. And I don't disagree with you, honestly, especially when it comes to like the top 100, the top 40 charts. A lot of that pop stuff that's coming out now just is completely empty calories. There's nothing happening. The music is saying nothing. The artists are saying nothing. There's no impact. There's no real musicality happening. This is a generalization. There are exceptions to this rule, but I don't think that that's actually the issue here. In the article, Ted says, some people, especially baby boomers, tell me that this decline in popularity of new music is simply the result of lousy new songs. Music used to be better, or so they say. The old songs had better melodies, more interesting harmonies, and demonstrated genuine musicianship, not just software loops, auto-tune vocals, and regurgitated samples. He then goes on to say the problem isn't a lack of good new music, it's an institutional failure to discover and nurture it. This is the real problem. Now, I do think part of this, from the working musician's perspective, over the last couple of years, is definitely because of the pandemic. In 2019, I had the busiest year I had ever had in terms of shows and touring. And 2020 was set up to be my busiest year yet, which was 8 or 9 years after coming into the industry as a full-time player. And obviously, that all went to hell. COVID-19 crushed that and essentially pushed me personally out of being a working guitar player, working hired gun guitar player, and pushed me into being a full-time YouTuber. But Ted actually talks about this a lot in his article, and I want to focus in on one thing here. A series of unfortunate events are conspiring to marginalize new music. The pandemic is one of those ugly facts, but hardly the only contributor to the growing crisis. Consider these other trends. The leading area of investment in the music business is old songs. Investment firms are getting into bidding wars to buy publishing catalogs from aging rock and pop stars. And you've seen the news. These stars are selling their catalogs for hundreds of millions of dollars, and that seems to be where the traditional music industry is headed right now. They're not investing in new artists. They're not investing in new infrastructure or bringing new up-and-coming talent and pushing it out to the mainstream through their traditional forms of publishing. They're going back and investing in the hits on the scale of hundreds of millions of dollars, potentially billions of dollars over the next couple of years. And while that's great if you are Bruce Springsteen or Bob Dylan or Sting, for up-and-coming artists and the people that work for and work with those up-and-coming artists like myself, it's not a great sign. It shows us that the traditional music industry, which we've all been working with and working for up until the last few years, is showing us that they're not interested. They're not willing to invest in anything that we have to say or we have to do. And I think that's where this sentiment is coming from of, well, all new music sucks. Yeah, if all the music that you're hearing is what's on top 40 radio or on the Billboard top 100 charts or whatever it is, I can totally see how you would think all new music sucks. But here's the thing. There's some incredible music being written and produced these days. I find stuff all the time on my Spotify algorithm or stuff that's recommended to me by friends that is incredible, that has come out in the last year or two. And it's not all just guitar-based, blues rock stuff. It's stuff from all across the musical spectrum. The problem is the traditional music industry is not promoting this. It's not helping these artists. And I've seen this firsthand, okay? So over the last several years, I've worked with and worked for a few different artists that put out amazing music. I've seen them get screwed over by these labels. Firsthand, I've seen it. These artists put years of their lives into writing and producing music that is amazing, and it says something, and it stands for something, like rock music used to, like pop music used to, only to get led along by the labels, by the industry, and at the very last minute completely put off, completely shut off. Or in a few cases, I've seen them get signed and almost like they were handed their golden ticket, and the next 5 to 10 years of their career was going to be explosive. They were going to be the next big thing, and then they get shelved. Nothing happens. I've seen it enough in my 10 years in the industry now to know that it's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better for artists and working musicians when you're trying to go and work for the traditional music industry, because as Ted says and as Rick says, the industry's not for us anymore. It's not here for us anymore. It's not interested in what my generation, the millennial generation or Gen Z, has to say. With Noah, for example, one of my best friends and an artist I've worked for almost 10 years, we put together Noah's new record over the last 2 years. It just came out. I'll have it linked down below, shameless plug. And it's Noah's best work as an artist and as a songwriter yet. The album's called Blue Wall, but the songs are real. The musicianship is real. We tracked it all in a room at the same time. But in Ted's article, he talks about the country industry. He says, quote, "A country record needs to sound a certain way to get played on most country radio stations or playlists. And the sound those DJs and algorithms are looking for dates back to the prior century. That and the sound that pop country radio is looking for is not traditional country kind of sound. It's bro country. If you're not bro country, good luck getting any placement on any pop country radio stations across the US, which, as far as radio goes, and as far as I understand it, is one of the last sort of bastions of radio airplay. Country radio stations seem to be one of the last places where getting played on the radio can have a real impact for you as a musician. Everywhere else, radio is essentially dead. At least for my peers and people I know. None of us listen to the radio or care about the radio at all. But I don't think this is all doom and gloom. In fact, I think there's some good news here. And Ted talks about this in the article. He says, quote, "Even so, I refuse to accept that we are in some grim endgame witnessing the death throes of new music. And I say that because I know how much people crave something that sounds fresh and exciting and different. If they don't find it from a major record label or an algorithm-driven playlist, then they will find it somewhere else." And this is my point. From the perspective of a working musician, I have watched over the last 10 years a major shift happen. When I came out of music school, when I came out of AIM, the way you thought about making a living as a hired gun musician is landing a gig. If you wanted to go this way, you'd get hooked up with an artist, either in Atlanta, or you'd go to Nashville and hustle for a gig, or LA and hustle for a gig, and you'd go out, and that artist would more than likely, blow up, and you'd go on tour, and, you'd have your gig solidified. First of all, those gigs are harder and harder to come by because there's less new artists blowing up. Specifically, less new artists that are instrumental based, that have real bands playing behind them. And so there just isn't that much to go around, it seems. But what I've seen is a shift from hoping to get on with someone else to kind of doing it yourself. The rise of YouTube and Instagram and now TikTok. The idea that as musicians, we possess a skill set, and we've spent thousands of hours honing a craft and learning something that is really valuable to a lot of people, that a lot of people want to know. Well, now there's these platforms that you can go on and, if, like in my case, share the knowledge that you've gained over 20 years of practicing and playing guitar, and share the knowledge that you continue to gain. There are other ways of making a living as a musician, as a working musician, than just getting hired on a gig and going out and touring 200 dates a year, or playing on a residency gig locally, or just teaching guitar lessons to 40 students a month. We are living through and witnessing a huge shift in how people in our industry make a living, how you can make a living. And the reality is, there's more options and avenues available for people like me than there ever was before. You couldn't 15 years ago go and start a YouTube channel and monetize it, or grow your Instagram profile, or grow on TikTok. These options weren't available for you 10 or 15 years ago. And from an artist's perspective, from a writer's perspective, you can utilize these tools to build your own grassroots audience. You don't need the labels anymore. You don't need the traditional music industry anymore. The gatekeepers, in some respects, are dead or dying. If you're a band, if you're an artist, a musician, you can do this yourself now, but you have to think about it differently. You have to think about making a living as a musician differently than the musicians from Rick's era or from the 90s or the early 2000s had to think about it. In my opinion, being a working musician no longer just entails being proficient at your instrument. It's not how good you are, how fast you can play, how good your tone is. It's a multitude of different things. Can you record and produce your own parts remotely to get hired for remote sessions? Are you hip to video editing and production? Do you have a mind for teaching? Can you put video courses together and put those out and grow an audience? You essentially have become even more of your own self entity, your own business. And you, in some ways, need to think about yourself as a business. You need to think about what marketable skill sets you have, aside from just playing your instrument really well, which is still very important and hasn't faded in importance at all. But there are now these other things, these other skill sets that I believe are just as important as being proficient at your instrument. So yes, I think old music right now is absolutely killing new music, at least popular new music, the stuff that the traditional music industry is putting out there for consumption by the masses. But there is just as much incredible music being made today as there ever was. And there's new stuff, different sounds, different production techniques. Artists are doing new and interesting things. If you're only listening to Top 40 radio, though, you're not hearing any of it. And from the perspective of a working musician, it's not all over. You can still make a living with a guitar or bass or drumsticks or whatever in your hand. It just looks different now. And it's going to continue to change over the next 5 to 10 years. Things are changing so fast. I feel like I'm just kind of white knuckling and holding on and taking things as they come. YouTube is a big part of it for me, but for you, it's going to be something completely different. The point is, in my opinion, if you want to be a working musician, the endangered species of working musician, I think you need to change how you think about your work. You need to change and expand your mindset and your perspective on how you generate income in this industry, what you do, and the skill sets that you spend your time developing, because it's now not just about how good you are as a guitar player. Those are my 2 cents. I would love to know what you think about this. Let me know in the comments section down below. Don't forget to go check out the article and Rick's video, which is linked down below there as well. If you want to support the channel, you can find all the stuff down there, video courses, all that kind of thing. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really helps the channel out, and I appreciate it. My name is Rhett Shull, and remember, there is no plan B. And just a note on the no plan B thing. I've had a few questions recently on what that means, and I haven't explained it in a while. To me, the no plan B thing, it's the idea that whatever you decide to do, you treat it as if there is no backup plan. You get up every single day and you work towards that thing as if you don't have anything to fall back on. Even if you do, it doesn't literally mean don't have a plan B, don't have a backup plan. It means work towards something with the intensity as if this is all you have, as if either this works or nothing else does. Just something I think about Hopefully it helps you out. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.